Okay, so, you sent over this really interesting stuff about the early days of SpaceX, all these articles and blog posts, even that documentary clip.
Yeah.
And there's this one image that really kind of stuck with me.
Okay.
Elon Musk, fresh off that whole PayPal thing.
Right.
Looking at NASA's Mars plans back in the early 2000s and finding basically nothing.
Yeah.
Like you climb one huge mountain and then you look up and there's an even bigger one right there in front of you. There's no trail, no map, nothing.
Yeah, I think what's so compelling about that moment, especially for someone like you, with your drive and your interest in pushing boundaries, is the audacity of it, right? This is a guy who, could have just relaxed and enjoyed his success.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But instead, he's questioning this fundamental lack of ambition in space exploration.
It's so true.
It speaks to a mindset that isn't satisfied with just, tiny little steps forward.
Yeah, and it's like that what if moment, but taken to the nth degree, right?
Totally.
What if a tech visionary who isn't exactly known for his patience gets completely fed up with the status quo, but in a completely different industry?
Right.
And especially after, he tries to basically hack the system by showing up to meet these Russian rocket scientists.
Yeah.
With supposedly a suitcase full of cash.
Oh, yeah. I heard that story, too.
Then they basically laugh him out of the room.
It's amazing, right?
Twice.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
But that story about him trying to buy those rockets, it's more than just a funny anecdote.
Yeah.
It seems like it was a real turning point for him.
Totally.
Imagine the frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like a humiliation of being dismissed like that.
I can't even imagine.
Especially for someone as driven as Musk.
Right.
That rejection probably just fueled him even more.
Oh, yeah.
To prove them wrong,
Of course.
To take control and make it happen himself.
It's like a runner who trips right at the starting line. But instead of giving up, they decide, I'm going to build a better pair of shoes.
Right.
And then I'm going to organize my own race.
Exactly.
So in 2002, fueled by that rejection, and a cool $100 million of his own money,
wow,
SpaceX is born.
Space exploration technology.
Yeah, pretty catchy, right?
I like it.
A total bet the company move, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really shows that radical sense of agency we often see.
Okay.
In people who accomplish these seemingly impossible things. Instead of complaining about the lack of a Mars plan, he decides, I'm going to be the one to make it happen.
Wow.
Even if it means starting from scratch in a field that is notoriously difficult.
And the crazy thing is, their beginnings were surprisingly low-key.
Really?
Just this small office in El Segundo, California. Picture a dentist's waiting room.
Okay.
But with rocket blueprints instead of magazines.
That's a pretty good visual.
And get this, Musk personally interviewed something like the first 3,000 applicants.
3,000?
Yeah, 3,000.
Wow.
That tells you something about the intensity right from the start.
Oh, absolutely. The recruitment of that initial team was crucial.
Yeah.
To attract top talent like Tom Mueller, Chris Thompson, people with serious experience in building rockets.
Right.
It shows how powerful a compelling vision can be.
Totally.
These guys were basically taking a huge leap of faith, joining this tiny startup with massive goals and no guarantee of success in a field that was totally dominated by, giant companies and government agencies.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Musk's hiring philosophy.
Yeah, what about that?
Well, let's just say it was very focused.
Yeah.
The stories about him favoring young engineers? The ones with no family, no distractions?
Yeah, I've heard those.
It paints a picture of this incredibly demanding work environment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are your thoughts on that kind of intense early work culture?
Well, I think that level of focus can help you move faster in the beginning, especially in aerospace, where the stakes are high and there's not a lot of room for error.
Right.
But it also raises questions about whether it's sustainable in the long run.
Right, of course.
And whether it's healthy for the team. I mean, rocket science has incredibly tight margins for error.
For sure.
It demands extreme dedication.
Totally.
But finding a balance is essential if you want to be successful over time.
Okay, so their first creation.
Yep.
The Falcon 1.
I love that name.
Named after the Millennium Falcon, of course.
Obviously.
But just to be clear, this wasn't the sleek, reusable rocket we see today.
Right.
In the beginning, it was this low-cost, almost like cobbled-together machine.
Interesting.
More like a scrappy underdog than a super advanced piece of tech.
Yeah, the main idea behind the Falcon 1 was to shake up the launch market.
Okay.
By offering a much cheaper option.
Got it.
This meant taking a completely new approach to rocket design and manufacturing, focusing on keeping things simple and affordable.
Yeah.
Instead of using those traditional, really expensive methods.
So to power this scrappy little rocket,
Yeah.
they developed their own engines.
Cool.
Merlin for the first stage, Kestrel for the second.
More bird names.
I know, right?
I love
It's
that.
like a superhero origin story.
Right.
But with rocket engines.
Yeah. Developing those engines themselves was a huge technical accomplishment.
Oh, for sure.
They weren't just putting together off-the-shelf parts.
Right.
They were designing and building the core rocket technology from the ground up.
Wow.
Which gave them way more control over performance and cost.
So they start testing these engines out in the Mojave Desert.
Sounds about right.
Which sounds pretty dramatic, right?
Oh, yeah.
But apparently all the soot from the tests was messing with air traffic control.
Oh, no.
So they had to pack up and move to McGregor, Texas,
Okay.
to this old Beale Aerospace site.
Wow. Talk about adapting to unexpected challenges.
Yeah, that move shows you the real world side of rocket development.
Totally.
You need these massive isolated spaces for testing.
And you're always dealing with regulations
Right.
and concerns from the people who live nearby.
Totally.
It's not just about the engineering.
Yeah.
It's about the logistics and the impact on the real world.
Okay, so then comes the ultimate test.
The launches.
Yes, the launches.
Oh, boy.
The first 3 Falcon 1 attempts?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say they were a huge learning experience.
Sure.
We're talking explosions,
Yeah.
fuel leaks,
Oh,
even a stage imploding.
that's good.
Not exactly the picture-perfect launches they were hoping for.
No, those early failures must have been brutal for the team,
Yeah.
financially and emotionally. Every single one was a major setback,
Yeah.
costing them time, resources, morale.
Right.
But looking back,
Yeah.
those failures were absolutely critical.
I see.
They learned so much from each one.
Okay.
They got valuable data that helped them improve the design. It shows you something really important about innovation.
What's that?
Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's often a necessary step on the way to success.
I like that.
Yeah.
So there's this almost unbelievable story from one of those failed launches.
Okay.
Apparently there was this U.S. Air Force satellite
Uh-huh.
that was supposed to go into orbit,
Right.
but after the rocket splashed down,
Yeah.
they found the satellite in a machine shop.
A machine shop.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Wow.
Not exactly the delivery service they were expecting.
No, it just goes to show you the incredibly high stakes of spaceflight.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about just random objects here. These are complex, expensive systems
Right.
carrying valuable payloads.
Of course.
And when things go wrong,
Yeah.
the consequences can be huge.
And very public.
Exactly.
And all those failures, they really pushed SpaceX to the limit.
Yeah.
Musk was down to his last few $1 million.
Wow.
That 4th Falcon 1 launch, that was it.
Their last chance.
Their one last shot.
I can't even imagine that pressure.
Can you imagine being on that team?
It's almost unimaginable.
To have all those setbacks,
Yeah.
knowing that the company's survival depends on this one single event. It takes incredible resilience
Totally.
and a crazy amount of belief in what you're doing.
It says a lot about their leadership
Yeah.
and the team's dedication that they didn't just give up.
So then September 28th, 2008,
Yeah.
against all odds,
Yeah.
the 4th Falcon 1 launch, it succeeds.
Wow.
They reach orbit.
That's incredible.
It's like something out of a movie.
It really is.
That one moment, it saved SpaceX.
It proved they could actually do it.
It proved to the world they could do it.
That successful launch was huge.
It was.
It validated their technology.
Yeah.
And it showed potential customers, including NASA,
Right.
that they were for real.
Yeah.
They weren't just some long shot anymore.
Totally.
They were a legitimate player in the space industry.
It's like you said earlier, that breakthrough after so much effort.
That resonates with you thinking about your own challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And that success opened the door to those NASA contracts.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the company that everyone had been laughing at was being taken very seriously.
Very serious.
And from that point on,
what happened?
The innovation just exploded.
Okay.
Falcon 9 Dragon capsules, reusable boosters.
Wow.
Landing rockets on drone ships. I mean, come on.
That's insane.
It was like science fiction happening in real time.
The pace of development after that first successful launch was mind-blowing.
It was.
Every single achievement built on what they learned from the Falcon 1.
Right.
It showed their relentless drive to improve and their willingness to push the boundaries of what people thought was possible.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, Musk's insistence on reusable rockets, a lot of the established players thought that was totally unrealistic.
Really?
Like a pipe dream.
They thought it couldn't be done.
Economically unviable. Technically too challenging.
Too hard.
The traditional approach to space travel had always been, you use a rocket once and then it's gone.
Disposable.
Exactly.
So the idea of recovering and reusing these incredibly complex machines seemed impossible from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah.
And way too expensive.
Until December 2015.
Right.
That incredible footage of the Falcon 9 booster landing vertically back on Earth.
It was amazing.
It looked like something straight out of a movie.
It did.
Some people actually thought it was CGI.
I can see why.
That successful landing was a total game changer.
Absolutely.
It completely changed the economics of space travel.
It opened the door to much lower launch costs.
Right.
And more frequent missions.
And all that initial skepticism, it just made that achievement even more significant.
For sure.
And SpaceX didn't stop at just launching satellites.
What else did they do?
They got into providing internet from space with Starlink, and then launching astronauts to the International Space Station.
With Crew Dragon. Taking on roles that governments used to have a monopoly on.
Exactly.
This move into satellite internet and human spaceflight shows that their vision is much bigger than just being a launch company.
Absolutely.
It positions them as a major player in the future of space.
Totally.
Not just launching stuff,
right,
but providing space-based services and driving exploration.
Which brings us to Starship. This massive stainless steel rocket.
It's a beast.
It looks like it came straight out of an old sci-fi comic book.
It does.
Designed for one ultimate goal.
Mars. The Starship is a massive leap forward.
It is.
In terms of scale and ambition.
For sure.
A fully reusable system designed to carry huge payloads to deep space.
It's central to Musk's vision of getting humans to Mars.
And making them self-sufficient there.
Right, a permanent presence.
Exactly.
But it hasn't been easy getting there. Environmental concerns, those pretty spectacular explosions during testing, and the whole creation of Starbase down in Boca Chica, Texas.
It's been a wild ride.
It has been.
Developing Starship has definitely had its challenges.
It has.
It shows you how complex things get when you're dealing with technological innovation, environmental regulations, and the impact on local communities.
You know, it's a reminder that when you push boundaries, you're going to run into unexpected obstacles.
You always do.
But through it all, Musk's commitment to making humanity a multi-planetary species, it hasn't wavered.
It's out.
You have to admire that long-term vision.
You do.
Even if the timeline seems a little, optimistic sometimes.
That big long-term vision of establishing a human presence beyond Earth. It's a powerful driving force behind so much of what SpaceX does.
Totally.
Whether they hit every milestone exactly as predicted.
Right.
That overall goal gives them a clear direction, and it inspires some incredible innovation.
Of course, SpaceX isn't the only player in the space game anymore.
Sure.
China's making huge progress.
Yeah.
Other private companies are popping up. Everyone's trying to figure out reusable rockets.
It's a whole new era of competition.
It is.
And that's a natural outcome of SpaceX's success.
In a way.
Yeah. Their breakthroughs have definitely pushed the entire industry forward.
They've inspired a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between copying what SpaceX has done and innovating at the pace they've set.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at projects like Starlink and Starship.
Those are massive.
They just keep raising the bar.
It's a really important distinction.
Totally.
Other companies might be working on similar tech. But SpaceX's approach is different.
How so?
They're not just focused on launch.
Right.
Doing it all.
Okay.
Launch, satellite infrastructure, deep space transportation.
Yeah.
And they're constantly iterating and improving.
That sets them apart.
It does.
So the question everyone wants to know,
What's that?
when are we actually going to see humans walking on Mars?
That's the big one.
Musk has laid out some pretty ambitious timelines.
He has.
But realistically, given all the technical and logistical hurdles, a crewed Mars mission is probably more like late 2030s.
Okay.
Early 2040s.
It's not just about building a rocket that can get there.
No, it's not.
We have to figure out how to protect the astronauts from radiation.
Right.
How to grow food in that environment. How to deal with the psychological effects of a years-long mission in deep space.
Yeah. It's a whole bunch of challenges.
A whole constellation of challenges.
Goodness.
Keeping humans alive on Mars, that requires breakthroughs in all sorts of fields, from life support systems to advanced medical tech.
And then there's the funding.
Of course.
And the international collaboration.
Yeah.
But here's a thought that's pretty mind-blowing,
Okay.
especially considering what you do.
Yeah.
The first humans on Mars might not be on a government mission.
Interesting.
They might be riding on a private rocket.
Wow.
Built by a company that started with a guy trying to buy old Russian missiles.
And getting laughed out of the room.
Exactly.
That would be a truly historic moment.
It would.
It would show just how much the space industry has changed.
Yeah.
With private companies playing a bigger and bigger role.
Maybe even the leading role.
It's amazing to think about.
It would be proof that bold goals and relentless execution can change the world.
Couldn't agree more.
So, beyond all the incredible achievements and the futuristic tech, there are some pretty wild behind-the-scenes stories from the early days of SpaceX.
Oh yeah, I love those stories.
Like the near mutiny on Omelek Island.
What?
When they were getting ready for a Falcon 1 launch?
No, I haven't heard that one.
It's a crazy story.
Tell me more.
It shows you how hard it is to work in such a remote and demanding environment.
I can imagine.
Think about the logistics,
Yeah.
the pressure to perform under really tough conditions.
With limited resources.
That easy.
They had all these delays with supply.
Uh-oh.
It was incredibly hot.
Okay.
They're trying to assemble this rocket on this tiny little island in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Morale was at rock bottom.
I bet.
And what does Musk do?
What?
He has this care package flown in
Okay.
on his private jet.
No way.
Chicken wings and cigarettes.
He knows his audience.
He does.
That's amazing.
It's a great story.
It really is.
It shows the human side of this whole space exploration thing.
Right.
Even with all the complex engineering. Sometimes it's the simple things.
Yeah.
Showing your team you understand and support them.
Totally.
That can make all the difference.
Those small gestures can go a long way.
They really can.
For sure.
And then there's that crazy explosion in 2016
Oh, yeah?
during a static fire test.
With the Falcon 9?
Yep, the Falcon 9.
Wow.
Facebook's satellite AIM-06.
Huh.
Billions of dollars.
Gone.
Gone.
Up in smoke. Literally up in smoke before it even left the ground.
That must have been a huge blow.
It sent shockwaves through the whole industry.
I bet.
It was a harsh reminder that rocket technology is inherently risky.
Yeah.
Losing a payload that valuable. It raised serious questions about SpaceX's reliability and safety protocols. It did.
So what caused it?
Well, they think it was supercooled oxygen.
Okay.
Apparently, it might have solidified inside one of the carbon fiber tanks, and that caused the explosion.
Wow.
Musk himself called it the most complex failure in SpaceX history.
I could see why.
But what's amazing
Yeah.
is how quickly they figured out what went wrong
Okay.
and got back to launching
That's impressive.
to recover from something like that so fast.
It speaks to their engineering expertise,
Totally.
their commitment to rigorous testing, and always looking for ways to improve.
And then there's that whole thing with Ken Bowersox.
Oh, right.
The former NASA astronaut
Yeah.
who SpaceX brought in to oversee safety.
I remember that.
He was there, and then suddenly he was gone.
Yeah.
No real explanation.
What do you think happened?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a clash of styles.
Or either.
The intense pace at SpaceX, the demanding culture.
It's not for everyone.
Even for someone with his experience in the space program, it
Yeah.
might not have been a good fit.
We'll probably never know for sure,
Probably not.
but it's interesting to think about.
And let's not forget about their business strategy.
Okay.
In the beginning,
Yeah.
SpaceX was all about undercutting the competition on price,
Interesting.
offering launches for way less than companies like Arianespace.
That's a bold move.
It was.
Trying to grab market share?
Exactly.
That aggressive pricing was key to breaking into the launch market.
It was.
Offering a cheaper alternative.
Right.
That's how they attracted customers. And proved that their low-cost approach could work.
But it also meant operating on razor-thin margins in those early years.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Musk even joked that SpaceX was like a startup selling long-term bets for short-term survival.
I love that analogy.
High-stakes poker with rockets as the chips.
It perfectly captures the risk.
It does.
And the constant need for funding to deliver on these ambitious timelines.
In such a capital-intensive industry.
Absolutely.
And then there's that kind of out-there vision for Starbase.
In Boca Chica.
Yep, down in Texas.
So it's not just a launch facility?
Apparently not.
What else?
The long-term plan is to make it like a Mars-themed resort.
A resort?
Yeah, with rooftop bars and sci-fi hotels.
Wow, that's thinking outside the box.
Outside the atmosphere, I guess.
It shows you Musk's big vision.
It does.
And his ability to blend all sorts of seemingly unrelated ideas. Who knows if that vision for Starbase will ever fully come true.
Right.
But it shows his tendency to think big.
He does.
To blur the lines between technological progress and what life might be like in the future.
So as we wrap up this look at the SpaceX story, what's the main takeaway for you?
For me, it's the sheer willpower.
Yeah.
The refusal to be limited by conventional thinking or by early setbacks.
It's an incredible story of perseverance.
It is.
The SpaceX story is all about how a powerful vision combined with total determination and a willingness to learn from your mistakes can lead to truly groundbreaking achievements.
It shows you what's possible.
It does.
When you keep pushing forward. Even when things seem impossible.
Failing 3 times with their first rocket and still not giving up.
Risking everything.
Looking at this crazy goal, affordable, reusable space travel, and saying, we're going to make this happen.
Inspiring.
And it shows you that innovation is a process.
You
try things. You learn from your mistakes.
You get better.
And you keep going.
Exact progress isn't always a straight line.
So for everyone listening out there, thinking about your own goals,
your own races,
what's your Falcon 1?
What's that thing?
What's that project, that goal, that challenge?
That you're going to keep working on.
Even after you face setbacks?
Until you finally succeed.
That's a great question to think about.
The SpaceX journey reminds us that big accomplishments rarely come easy.
They don't.
You have to try again and again, learn from each experience.
And never give up on your vision.
That's right.
So until our next deep dive, keep pushing your own boundaries.
Keep reaching for those impossible dreams.
Because the SpaceX story shows us
that sometimes
the most audacious dreams
are the ones that change the world.
Keep exploring.
Keep learning.
And never underestimate the power of a determined mind.
To achieve the extraordinary.